Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2017 LOL Varsity League Summer Term. And this is our second day, actually, for this league in our first week ever. In our first game, we had a pentakill, and of course, there's going to be more esports action coming to you today. We'll be your shoutcasters for the first game. I'm Atlas. With me is Arctic. Of course, we'll be having iAcademy Game Changers versus UPD Ablation Esports right now. But before that, let's check out how everyone's standings were last week.
Yes, of course, with these standings, they're very interesting because right at the top, because what happened during day one, basically, it was a series of 1-1s until we hit that third matchup between TUP versus FEU Institute of Technology, wherein TUP in a very convincing 2-0, so currently at the top of the pack. But going into week 2, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we might see a few shifts, but it all depends on how these teams play it out for today.
It's all the preparation that they've had over the months leading to LVL, so it's going to be very interesting how they've adapted. They probably have been more acclimated to the changes of 7.22, but of course everything's much more dynamic here. And also, if you notice, it's 0-0 in the standings. UPD did not play last week, and they're going to play their first game versus iAcademy Game Changers right now. So this is going to be a new playing field because this is a team full of rookies. The only remaining team from the previous roster was Veer. So right now we're going to see how all that training and preparation fares against iAcademy Game Changers.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of weight, especially for Veer, in my opinion, because especially as the only veteran on the UP Ablation Esports roster, like there's that weight wherein he really needs to pull forward to bring the rookies up to par to what we know UP Diliman is capable of, even during the previous, especially when they did win as champion. And not just Veer, but all the players in general. That's a huge thing to live up to.
Yeah, it's also a test for the coaches of both of these teams as well, for iAcademy and UPD. The drafting and how to keep the team together, like glue the team together, it's really up to them to handle that. And for iAcademy and UPD, their coaches are actually a big part of how they play, and I'm really interested in seeing how it manifests in the drafting as well as the macro game.
I love that you brought up the coaches, because if anything, this is the matchup that I'm really looking forward to. If you're going to look at these two coaches, if anything, they're, in my opinion, probably the most talented coaches that we have in the LVL rosters right now. For UP Diliman, we have Red, of course, who is best known for having championed the winning team for last pitch, UP Diliman. So again, there is that challenge, of course, that he needs to bring that same style that he brings to the table with the new roster. So I'm interested in seeing how that works. But with iAcademy Game Changers at the same time, as we head into the pick and ban phase, Specs, a name that's pretty much known for being active in the past splits of the Garena programming series. We haven't seen him in quite a bit, so I'm interested in seeing how his coaching experience in the pro scene translates into a collegiate league.
It's probably going to help out a lot here, but this is where it all comes to, how the teams actually execute all that practice, all that coaching. So right now, let's look at the bans. It's going to be Misfortune, Alistar, and Jarvan the Fourth banding against UPD, while UPD bans out the Ramus, the Ezreal, as well as the Shen. So they're removing a lot of early pressure here around level 6, as well as the mobility of the Ezreal. So as for iAcademy, they're banning out quite a lot of damage and burst and engage coming from the Alistar and the Jarvan the Fourth.
Interested in seeing how, okay, there we go. So looks like the Braum, as well as at least a potential hover over. We do know Veer as one of those people, in my opinion, that is efficient at this champion. So I'm interested in seeing how he'll perform going into this game. And with the Maokai and the Tristana locked in as well, very standard picks that I'm seeing here. But one thing that I really like coming in from iAcademy, that priority on the Morgana, because especially with the preseason changes, I mean, sure, in ranked games, in the LCL, we see a lot of these mage supports, but here in the LVL, I feel like it'll be a bit different. If anything, I feel like we'll be seeing much more of these tanky champions, and which is why I really like this Morgana pick coming in from iAcademy, because Morgana is one of those champions which really fares well against most melee tanky champions.
Yeah, the popular picks, having a lot of CC and engage, the Black Shield will definitely help out, especially if UPD is going to continue picking more tanky engaged champs like the Braum, like the Ornn. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Sinigang will actually execute and save Buggy Van from a lot of these engages that UPD will want. The Cocoon as well from Veer will definitely be a dangerous tool that they will want to avoid. The Maokai, lots of sustain, the staying potential for the entire team, and the CC that he can bring out is definitely something that's very valuable for iAcademy.
Meanwhile, looking at the second rotation of bans coming in from iAcademy Game Changers as well as UPD Manipulation Esports, Xavier and Varus, a lot of emphasis on Yochan. And for the side of Manipulation Esports, it's going to be the Malzar as well as the Cinderbrand going on to import. So these are two people that we've seen have performed during the, well, particularly the import, because for UPD we haven't seen them just yet. So this will be the debut. But interesting enough, I like the fact that with these focus bans that we're seeing, it's very clear that iAcademy did their homework. Sure, we haven't seen Yochan in any competitive collegiate league, but that just goes to show just how much research they've done outside of that, through scrims perhaps, or perhaps even ranked games through his account.
Being able to have that information on your side will definitely help out. Seems like Yochan will be on that Zaya. Probably might have appreciated either Varus or the Silver there probably. But for iAcademy, they've locked that out. And iAcademy, lots of defense as well for Buggy Van, and a lot of damage coming in from Swar. So that is going to be the Galio lock-in. It's going to be very, very tanky. Combine that with a Maokai. There's so much staying power. Combine it with the Morgana, and just their AD carry will just have so much free time.
Interested in seeing what UPD will be responding with. We're yet to see a mid laner locked in for Souls here. Let's go ahead and see what they'll be going for, because if you're going to look at the composition that the Game Changers have, I'd say it's pretty well-rounded in the sense they have great initiation. They have a form of disengage in itself, although single target through Tristana as well as the Jace, but it looks like the Lissandra. Wow, this is a champion that I've been dying to see in the preseason, and looks like finally mapagbibigyan na ako.
Seems like this is the game to break the ice for today's matches. Lissandra in the mid lane for Solace, and it seems like they really are doubling down on all of the engage in CC. Just try and break through the black, because the Black Shield can only target one person. So it's either going to be Swar or Buggy Van. So by having this complete set of CC and engage, it makes it a difficult choice for Sinigang who to target, who to protect.
Meanwhile, looking at the composition that UPD Esports has, I'm such a fan of how this was drafted, in the sense that if you're going to look at all the champions across the board, they heavily benefit from Thorn's mechanic, the build mechanic, wherein that CC, I mean,
just gets extended. The bonus damage as well.
Exactly. If you're going to think of the running joke wherein if Morgana hits you with a Dark Binding, it takes forever. I mean, what more with a full composition that has CC, that has a form of lockdown, complemented by this one.
The Bellows Breath really helps out a lot. It also gets applied by the call of the Forge God. So I'm really interested in seeing how all this fares out for UPD. It seems like they really planned around the Morgana, just being able to protect one person, but what if the rest of the team can't really do anything because they're locked down?
Indeed. And I think at the end of the day, with their compositions here for both sides, I'm estimating that if anything, Game Changers, they might want to try to pull the trigger themselves, because if they allow UPD Manipulation Esports to start these fights on their own terms, it might be a bit trickier for iAcademy in the sense that it will be so hard to get to key targets, especially Yochan on the Saya, because look at how many people that could frontline can hold people off from getting into that backline. Again, maybe perhaps it could be executed through flanks, and like I mentioned, I think it also comes down to proactivity, which they do have through the Maokai and the Galio.
Yeah, their biggest obstacle really to take down Yochan is that Zaya is a self-peeling champion. The Featherstorm has so much versatility, and if you overcommit, you could just be in a world of hurt because of the Blade Caller. Alto is there also for the peel, for the defenses. Unbreakable is such a huge tool against Tristana and the Jace, so they have to be very careful in who to target and when they pull the trigger.
Interested in seeing how Sinigang will be performing on this Morgana though. I feel like one way that they could relieve the powerful team fight, in my opinion, coming in from UPD Innovation Esports through the protection of the Saya, is if Buggy Van and Sinigang could really get things going early on, just within the first 10 minutes of the game, then I feel like that would alleviate some of those issues. But then again, it does ultimately come down to execution. Based on the bans, like I mentioned, 3 champions bound out from Yochan. I mean, you don't ban out 3 AD carries without, for no reason
knowing
whatsoever.
that that's the priority, and it seems like Buggy Van and Sinigang are going for that path where they want to take down Yochan and Alto early. The Ignite, combined with a spike coming from Buggy Van and Sinigang at level 2 or 3. And it's going to be a pain if Alto is not able to protect Yochan.
And we'll just have to see. I mean, if we'll be seeing adjustments maybe in how Yochan and Alto will be playing out the lane. Maybe we'll be seeing much more emphasis coming in from Veer towards this bot side. And not just Veer, technically even the Lissandra to an extent could make rooms towards that bot side, which has an excellent lockdown. I mean, Lissandra is almost the queen of CC for mages in my,
yeah,
at least in my
definitely.
opinion.
Just a lot of options. Almost every ability she has the ability to actually lock you down. So, and lots of mobility as well with the Glacial Path, being able to walk, or rather warp over walls and skip those wards might make it a hard time for the bot lane of Academy to be very safe.
Man, but I don't know about you guys, but with all said and done, we do have both teams having locked in their compositions. Let us know, of course, from wherever you're watching, whether it be through Facebook Live or, of course, through our YouTube stream, gaming.youtube.com/pagegarena/live, as to who you guys think is going to take it home with the compositions locked in, or who you guys are ultimately rooting for to maybe take it 2-0. I mean, we'll just have to see. I'm very excited for this game.
Definitely very excited indeed. So, just looking at this, it seems like early game is going to be focused on the bot side. And the junglers will have a huge role in how that plays out. I also want to see what keystones for the runes that they've chosen, because it affects their playstyle and how they play the lane so much. So that's going to be a big chunk of information that we need to see once the game starts. So it's going to be very, very interesting.
So overall, though, looking at, let's just go back to the compositions real quick. In the laning phase, I'm interested in seeing how, it's because we haven't really seen Lissandra, so I'm not really sure how a laning phase will go between Galio and Lissandra, but I'm not really expecting as much. Maybe the only action that we might be seeing is if ever we do see jungle ganks come in, but other than that, probably not as much, because Galio in itself could kind of poke with Winds of War, but as far as full-on engages, Lissandra's just going to stop him. And same goes for Lissandra. You have to take note that Lissandra, one of the deficiencies that she has is that she really needs to be in these fights.
She's very short range with her abilities. But since her laner is at melee Galio, it's going to be a little bit easier to bring out the harassment. But of course, Galio very resilient, especially if it goes to the certain keystones, certain runes. So it's going to be all about how they pick their keystones here. I think it's going to be very important in determining how they're able to survive the lane and how they transition into the mid game to the late game.
We'll just have to see, but I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, I admittedly have a little bit more expectations of iAcademy Game Changers, especially since their game the previous week, wherein they went up against MCL. Only because MCL for me is one of the stronger teams entering the Varsity League with all the experience that they have on the board. So the fact that they were able to pull that into a 1-1 definitely makes a statement of this rookie team. But then again, you can't discount UP Diliman. Although, sure, they have rookies. They do have Veer to kind of spearhead things for them. Not to mention a very talented coach. Both teams, actually, very talented coaches. So I think it's not really the pride of the teams that are on the line here. Also, the coaches to an extent. Because, like I mentioned, I peg these two coaches as probably the best of the best in the Varsity League right now.
It's really all about what knowledge has been passed on to UPD and how iAcademy, how iAcademy can transition from the momentum from last week into this first game of the day, and how UPD can transition the knowledge that has accumulated in all the old retired members onto the new ones, and how Veer can also act as a glue in terms of just not also gameplay, like ganking, making sure that his laners are ahead, but also in terms of how he can keep the team together mentally and emotionally, stuff like that. But it's going to be very telling, this very first game that UPD has, and in this day actually, to see how the rest of the term will actually play out.
I mean, talking about these players, we've been talking about how there's definitely a lot of pride on the line for the coaches, but then again, especially talking from personal experience, you can only do so much when you're a coach. But it looks like I'll hold off as we head into game one once again between the iAcademy Game Changers versus University of Diliman Ablation Esports. Game one, let's head into the action. Let's go.
Just regular lines of scrimmage for both of these teams. Don't want to overextend too much. Don't want to really show their cards right away. For now, it's a little bit of safety. Of course, iAcademy does have a little bit of a scout there in that sapling from the Meowkai. Just a little bit. See if Alto actually triggers it. It won't really matter in the long run, but for this one, we have to notice where the junglers start. So it seems like from what we're looking at in the minimap, they're starting in opposite ends of the map. Veer starting on his red side, red buff side, while Hio is also on his red buff side. So opposite priorities on the map for this one. Oh, it seems like, okay, Veer was just sticking around his red buff. So blue side, both actually going to end up around top side of the map after first clear.
I like the respect coming in from both teams. If anything, if you're going to look at some of the previous games coming in from week 1 of the LVL, it's mostly teams earlier on establishing vision, you know, that early vision to try to scout out the jungler. But this time I feel like there's a lot more respect. You don't really see that as much right now. So, yeah, at the end of the day, we'll just have to see how this ultimately runs down for both teams. But if anything, I'm definitely anticipating perhaps a lot more action towards bot lane, depending on how Buggyvan and Sinigang and Yochan and Alto play out their lanes, especially according to what champions that they have on the board.
Definitely. It's really going to be quite the matchup between these lanes and these junglers. We'll have to see. Right now, Veer's clearing his wolves, probably going to, as I said, go around top side. Make sure that Sword does not bully the Ornn too much.
Ooh, go. Looking towards this mid lane. Getting a little bit of a push, but then again, that is what you'd expect of Vigalio because of the passive, wherein really gets the power as soon as that cooldown goes down. So, somewhat expected, but looking towards this bot side, I like how there's a little bit more of a balance. Nobody really pushing out lanes. It's just pretty much balanced even. But then again, that's the precaution you have to take. Looks like UPD naman will be pushing out a little bit more into Buggyvan and Sinigang.
They do have that little bit of freedom, actually. Make sure, I think they kind of have an idea that Hios are going around top side instead of bot side. So here, Yochan and Alto are pushing in Buggyvan ever so slightly, and backing him into that tower.
It's like both junglers are going to spot each other out towards this river, though. Elise and Maokai just going at it. Looks like taking a little bit of health off each other, but still nothing particularly substantial. Of course, Veer, as expected, will take a little bit more damage in that trade-up because this is a Maokai that we're talking about here. A little bit more on the tankier side in comparison to an Elise, which is a little bit more delicate.
A little bit more delicate indeed. Higher base damages at the start, but the big thing about that is that both of these teams now have clear-cut information on where both Veer and Hio are. So that's going to be a little bit more aggressiveness in the bot lane from either side. Depends on how these waves play out. Solace and Import as well will be a little bit more careful, knowing that their junglers might be around the corner.
Ooh. Looks like Buggyvan and Sinigang, though, will be pushing out a little bit more now that wave. I mean, now that both junglers have been kind of distinguished as to where they're kind of lingering at right now. But then again, if you look at this top side, Veer gonna try to go for something, but not really. Decides to just kind of play it out show for now.
It's a little bit of a trade-off. It seems like Buggyvan is going for to press the attack. A lot of damage. It's going to be very scary combining Buggyvan's damage into the late game. Just lots more damage, and whatever he targets, Sword is going to jump on that target and deal a lot of his own damage. Probably has the electrocute here. So it's going to be very scary in terms of the damage that they can pull out. But as you said earlier, during the drafting, it's going to be very hard for Buggyvan and Sword to actually find their targets if Alto and the rest of the UPD squad is able to peel and actually defend their AD carry.
Indeed. And looking at things here, I mean, because as I mentioned, across the lanes, if action is most anticipated towards the bot side, I wouldn't really expect much towards the top side as well as mid lane. A few trades here and there, most likely not as much towards top side because an Ornn versus a Jace, I mean, I don't really expect Nona to be taking as much damage anytime soon, just considering how tanky in general Ornn is through his kit. But let's just go ahead and see how that ultimately runs down for both sides. Both junglers, though, take note, have already completed their first rotations, already back on the map. And let's go ahead and see whether or not Veer and Hio will be making that transition towards bot side now. That is something that both bot laners have to take into account of, given that they did have information of both junglers lingering towards top side earlier. Now that we have hit past that 5-minute mark, it is highly likely that these junglers
it's going to be difficult all-in or a counter gank, actually, because all of these bot laners have their summoner spells, so they still have that those mobility from the flash as well as the survivability. But here comes actually Veer going for something. That is the flash burnt onto Sinigang with no cost coming from UPD. Very quick gank. It is a little bit of a success, but it's not as much as they would have wanted.
A little bit of pressure there. Not bad to have that summoner
pressure.
spell down. That does relieve some of the potential flash and dark bindings if ever that Maokai does come in for a gank into lane. But then again, speaking of Maokai, looks like he is going to linger towards this bot side, just clearing out that camp. Whether or not he'll eventually transition into lane, I'm not sure that will be feasible, as both Yochan and Altu have made that recall.
Yes,
so
this should be a pretty good back timer for both of these AD carries. If they're looking for that BF sword, Yochan does indeed get that big item. Lots of attack damage on that champion right now. So once he gets to lane, Buckevan will be a little bit of a disadvantage, unless, of course, he gets a good recall timer right now.
Ooh. So very safe and sound for both sides. I really like how both sides are just kind of playing it chill. I mean, like I've mentioned, for most of the games that we've been casting, whether in the LVL or LCL, sure, it has been a little bit more calm for LVL, but in general, like we've been seeing a lot of these games which are just kind of over within, what, like 15 to 25, 20 to 25 minute mark. So, but with how things are playing out right now for both IAC and University of New Zealand, definitely a lot more calculated. Coaches have kind of molded into the mindset that, you know, we want to play it a little bit more safer with the earlier phases until such time you do reach those potent spikes that you want, especially going into the mid and late game.
Yeah, don't really want to show your cards and overcommit too much, especially in this kind of matchup where the coaches have so much sway in terms of how they'll play. Having that kind of safety, that mindset where you're playing not to lose, waiting for an opportunity before striking instead of trying to force opportunities too much, means that these teams will likely wait for a few more minutes before any real action happens. And it's actually very methodical in how they're doing this. So far, Veer applying pressure onto Kyo. Lots of damage actually from the Venom's bite. Seems like he will be going for it. Import goes in for the hero's entrance. Repel dodges away, but this gives a lot of time for Solace to go in. But I think that's a dead here right there. First blood goes to Import, and now it's going to be Solace against 3. Nona can't really help right now. Double kill goes to Import.
That was extremely awkward coming in from UPD Liman. If anything, Veer should have known that if he was going to push for that, Import was just around in the area to have made that hero's entrance. So overall, huge miscalculation in my opinion coming in from UPD Liman. I'm actually surprised that he didn't anticipate seeing that, especially since we are past that mark where both mid laners have their ultimates.
I'm not actually sure why that happened, because if Veer, Veer looking at the minimap was there for such a long time, applying pressure onto Hio, and Solace and Nona weren't there in time. Of course, it's given with Import because he has the hero's entrance, but Nona was right around the corner. He had the advantage in responding to that blue buff fight there between Hio and Veer, so he should have went there. He didn't have called the Forge God, but the terrain advantage from his volcanic rupture, as well as the sheer damage and survivability of Bellows Breath, would have helped out Veer a lot, especially if Solace was able to follow up on the fight.
Man, this is just pretty tricky now for UPD, but not exactly the best start for them, although it is still quite earlier into the game. Let's go ahead and see how Item Academy will ultimately build off from this, because across the board, those were 3 people that got the benefit, although much more so onto Import getting that double kill, while in its double assist for both Swar and Hio respectively.
Yeah,
so
Import's going to have a good time building these tanky items, and it's going to be much harder for Veer and the rest of the squad to actually take him down, because this is a lot of magic damage on this team. Nona, Veer, and Solace, and if Import's building like the way he is, if he continues like this, it's going to be very difficult for the 3 of them without Yochan to take him down.
Let's go ahead and see how UPD Liman will try to ease some of this. How do I put it exactly? Basically, for iAcademy, I mean, this is the type of start that they need. Although, then again, like I mentioned, it has been a little bit more passive with how this game has been playing out thus far. If anything, what happened earlier that resulted to those 2 kills coming in from iAcademy was not really much of them looking for a fight. I think it was just more of Veer being careless, not accounting for the hero's entrance coming in from Import. So if anything, it's really more of just looking for an opportunity to capitalize onto mistakes as opposed to proactive plays here. Although, I guess you could consider what Veer was doing earlier somewhat of proactivity, but it didn't really result in
I think it was more on less of a miscalculation and more of a miscommunication, because it was very possible for UPD to get a decent fight out of that. It may not have been like a 3-0 or something in that fight, but in terms of the logistics of that fight, it was very possible for Nona and their mid laner to actually follow up on Veer, because he stayed around for a long time. They should have gotten the idea that once a fight begins, Swar and the rest of the Academy squad will go there and try and contest that blue buff.
And if you're going to consider what champions that you're kind of working with, sure, Lissandra, like you mentioned, through that glacial path, has a little bit more mobility, but then again, it does have a high cooldown at the same time. And if you did notice, that glacial path was used to kind of go into the fight, not really to rush back.
Yeah, it was very strange, actually, seeing how all that played out. But here it seems like Veer will be taking the Ocean Drake for his team, a little bit more survivability in that lane. So it might be a boon that will actually help them get through the early deficit that Import actually took from them.
Definitely. I mean, even with 2 kills up, it's not really as substantial just yet. Goal difference is still fairly much less than 1,000, especially with this Dragon Take coming in from UPD Diliman. So, as Atlas mentioned, it does somewhat kind of relieve things for UPD Diliman, but then again, we'll just have to see how it ultimately goes for both sides. Like you did mention, Import definitely going to have a better time on this Galio with those 2 kills up, although luckily Sol is still up in CS, 2 waves impact.
And really, it's all about how Import will transition that 2-kill lead he has into pressuring the other lanes, especially top lane and his own lane combined with Hio, because with that lead, he's going to be very difficult to kill if Yo-chan isn't there to actually weather him down. So if he can just pressure a lane and not get killed because he's so tanky in the magic damage side, then UPD can't really do anything.
Let's go ahead and see those. Notice Hyo was kind of lingering towards that top side, looking for an opportunity. That is a very tanky orange, though. Regardless of, Sol still going to try for something, getting a little bit of damage there onto Import.
I don't think Solace and Veer will be enough unless Import really mispositions himself, because that is Negatron Cloak into Null Magic Mantle and a lot of health as well from the Catalyst. So that is going to be a very tall order to get a gank onto mid lane for Solace. Veer might have to pressure bot side a lot more here because they have the tools actually to engage onto Buggyvan. So they just have to be very careful. While Academy, they're in a pretty good spot here. They could just continue pressuring with just the presence of Import's teleport and his Eros entrance. That's a lot of deterrence happening against UPD.
And ultimately, this does kind of limit Veer's potential as to what lanes he could go for on this map. Again, as you mentioned, with this Galio building up, stacking up on the magic resistance across the board. Looks like we have a fight though.
Well, that is going to be Heroes Entrance on the Solace. Note this is going to be a 3v2. Veer is still quite far away. Call of the Forge God doesn't really do much. Solace now on the run. Seems like they might try to go for something on Swar. He does get the kill. That's going to be Import and Hio low. Veer giving chase. Solace as well, quite low, but he is good with that. Taking him out with that claw. So it's going to be Veer still going for something against Import. He has the movement speed boost from the spider form, trying to go for something with a cocoon, possibly. Does get it, but does he have enough damage? That is a very tanky Import right there, especially against magic damage. 2 for 1.
Not bad, not bad. I mean, this does help UPD. Scoreboard is almost pretty even in terms of gold now. That isn't really much of a difference that we're looking at anymore. So, still back into even terrain for both sides. Let's go ahead and see how this goes down with Veer. Great job at denying as much camps as he can from Hio. So, we'll just go ahead and see whether or not this also limits Hio to an extent. But, yeah, I mean, I like that proactivity coming in from Veer, though. Still, though, I think
just taking what he can get.
Yeah.
After that, he was in a position to take some. Hio was down. Might as well take those camps. So that blue buff will actually, denying the blue buff will actually help them quite a bit here. Veer getting a little bit of extra gold, a little bit of extra XP. Going for the Rift Herald, actually. Let's see. It doesn't seem like Hio is in a position to contest that just yet. And Sword does not really have an idea. This might be Rift Herald onto UPD for free. Veer still very healthy because of his spider lanes.
Yes, great job here coming in from Veer here. It looks like it will indeed be going uncontested. If you notice, most of the vision coming in from IAC, it's more of deep vision. If you notice towards the red buff of UPD Diliman, not really as much towards this river side though. So That might be a miscalc here as far as Rift Herald priority, but then again, let's go ahead and see how Veer will be using this Rift Herald. Again, I feel like if they're able to use it in a way that they get so much value out of it, then I think that's where we'll slowly see Diliman take somewhat of the lead, because most of what we're seeing here is more Academy. Oh, there we go.
Seems like that is going to be Import under assault, but that, again, as I said, magic damage doesn't do anything to Import, and that is going to be the roots coming from Hio, scaring them away.
One thing I was thinking of is, like I mentioned earlier, Veer has more of a limited feel of what he could go for just because of how this Galio is itemizing. So, if anything, the only thing that he can do is more of pressure rate towards his mid lane. But as far as translating it to a kill, I highly doubt that's something that could happen unless it's more of a larger team effort wherein the numbers are larger aside from just Veer and Solus. Because again, with this magic resist being built up by Galio, there's not really much Veer and Solus could do as far as damage. But yeah, let's go ahead and ultimately see how this goes. I mean, it's like Veer, though. Gonna go for that push towards top.
Yeah, as soon as Swar goes down, they actually summon the Rift Herald. Only Hio will be able to defend against this, but this is going to be quite the feat to take down on his own. Demolisher onto Nona, actually. So this is going to be a solid defense come from Hio until Import can respond to him. But he's a little bit busy mid lane defending against Solus's push, but now it might actually be just one turret coming from the Rift Herald and a little bit of pressure. Good back timing for Oblivion Esports jungler and top laner.
That's the type of value that I was talking about coming from UPD Dilemma. Not only were they able to get a kill on Swar, but first turret of the game through that Rift Herald, I'd say that's pretty okay use. And with this turret down towards top side, it definitely gives a lot more room for UPD Dilemma to breathe. Let's go ahead and I'm actually interested in seeing how Nuna will be going about this map now that he doesn't really have much to worry about towards top side unless a wave pushes out. So again, we'll just have to see. I'm anticipating perhaps more action, maybe to transition towards
the next target here is going to be the Mountain Drake. That is a big target, especially if UPD's top laner Nona is running the Demolisher. Then the Mountain Drake is something that they will want to get, just because they have that mindset to be able to take down these turrets fast and be able to dive these turrets, actually. So for UPD around bot side, again, we'll have to be a little bit more careful. Both Bugyavan, Yochan, the rest of the bot lane supports here will have to be quite cautious in how they act, because one wrong move might open it up for either Hio or Veer to take that Mountain Drake.
Do take note, though, both top laners do have their teleport stuff, so if things do kind of get nasty towards the bot side, especially if it does lead into a Baron, or rather a Dragon fight, then we may be seeing more action. But still, meanwhile, Hio getting spotted out by Veer, not really feeling the damage though coming from that LD side, gotta say. But then again,
and that really is going to be about how Yochan positions himself in these skirmishes as they're fighting around this dragon pit, because everyone has so much magic resist here. Hio has the Merc Treads, has the Null Magic Mantle, but against Yochan, since he has the Essence Reaver now, he has a little bit more damage on his side. It's going to be very dangerous for Academy to actually overcommit and go under Yochan's Trap of Feathers.
Overall, though, if ever a little bit of a trade-off happening will be also important.
It's just going to be a trade-off. I don't think Veer is going to influence this fight because, again, magic damage doesn't really do anything at all to Import as of now. Has the Abyssal Mask and the Spectre's Cowl, so really only physical damage will go through on this Galio. So it really depends on how they play these next few minutes, how Yochan actually scales up, and if they can make a play to get Yochan from 0-0-0 to have some kills or even assists.
I love the shove coming in here from Nona. In case that fights do break out towards the bottom side, and it does eventually lead to a point where he needs to teleport for a response, at least that does lead the way towards top side pushing in UPD Liman's favor, and definitely leaves a lot more for Swar to think about. Looks like UPD Liman, though, going to try to go for a second Drake of the game. No members of Academy are making their way, though. Looks like this may potentially be a Drake, indeed, uncontested.
Timed it pretty well. When they saw Hio around his blue buff side, because of the timer, because of the ward there, they commit to the Drake. And seeing as how Bugyavan and Sinigang had recalled, then that was a perfect call for UPD to take that Drake. Veer here might be overreaching, even though Alto is around a corner. Has to be very cautious, but it seems like he will be able to get this red buff.
Yeah, Veer really making good work right now. And I think going into the mid, I mean, it's undeniable. I gotta say, they played out the early game fairly okay, but going into the mid to late game, I think this is where the experience will really come into play for both sides. Which rookie team could kind of pull together and propel themselves into win? Because, I mean, as much as I want to say that UPD Liman is one of the teams which I have high expectations of, we can't really tell because these are ultimately new players that we're seeing on the board here. So, let's go.
This might be going for something. Solace and Veer, they are dealing a little bit of damage onto Import, just a little bit of pressure so that Yochan and Alto can continue pressuring the bot lane as well. Just a little bit of aggression on that turret. It's almost down. This will open up the map so much for UPD if they take both top and bot lane first tier turrets.
Notice though how IAC Academy they're starting to get much more limited to responding to what's going on with UPD, whether it be aggression through turrets. Everything is pretty much shoved out from UPD Liman right now, where IAC Academy is kind of in a more responsive position, and that kind of limits their potential to establish offensive vision and just limits their vision in general.
Right. So, right now, most of their wards will be in their own territory, defending against Veer's counter jungling and potential gank paths. Right here, they see exactly where Sinigang and Hio are. Especially now that he's clearing this, they know that they're in bot side. They have to be a little bit more careful. Yochan has to be a little bit more cautious, knowing that Hio might be around the corner.
Still, though, looks like Alto and Yochan is kind of lingering. This turret is almost nearing its downtime, but luckily for IAC Academy, good staying power here coming in from, making sure that he's lingering towards the bot side in case things do get ugly towards this turret siege for UPD Liman. But let's go ahead and see Veer though making his way. We might be seeing a fight though, and take note, Hio is making a recall, so things might get even more trickier for IAC Academy if UPD Liman goes on the aggressive towards his bot lane.
Import does have the hero's entrance, but that puts him at a difficult spot. Will he go for the defense? It seems like here they will just go for the turret, but now Import has to make a choice here. He has to defend his turret, and I think the bot lane of IAC Academy just has to give that up. That fell very, very quickly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was actually anticipating that since Hio was laning towards the bot side, he would have potentially have gone to help Buggy Van and Sinigang go for the defense on their turret, but that wasn't really the case. Instead, he did go for the recall, instantly giving UPD Liman yet another turret under the belt. Slowly, but I mean, I wouldn't say surely, but slowly, if you notice, the goal difference is kind of getting bigger and bigger.
2,000. At this point, it is quite small, but that could be what gives Yochan his power spike. He does have the Phantom Dancer already. Might go for something. Now that bot lane's turret has gone down, they are transitioning into the mid lane to open up the rest of the map. That first tier turret is at half of its health, and this will be a quick demolition job if UPD gets some alone time with that, because they have the Demolisher on Nona just to pressure the top side, as well as so much damage from the Mountain Drake and attack speed that Yochan has.
CS across the board, though, I gotta say, commendations to both teams. Pretty high from what I'd normally see out of a collegiate league, but then again, I'm assuming that this is a result of the training that the coaches put these players through in preparation for these games. A little bit of a trade-off happening between Swar and Nona.
Nona doesn't want to take a beating from Flor, but there isn't really anyone to help him out if Nona gets in a really bad spot, so I think he has to pull back the aggression on that. This might give IAC Academy a little bit of breathing room from that top side being so pressured in terms of the wave clear. But for now, it seems like Nona is regenerating a lot of health.
Bot side though, interesting of making the rotation towards this mid lane. I'm wondering though, something might eventually break out. Looks like all 4 members of UPD Liman are lingering, and this could potentially be a turret take. No minion wave though, so that
we'll have to wait for that to build up. But once it actually gets to them, it will be a 4-on-4 standoff in this mid lane.
Man, this
quite
turret
interesting.
is quite healthy towards the top side, and Nona just not taking any prisoners, not giving Swar any opportunity whatsoever to try to take that down, and just taking it all in like a champ. And IAC Academy though looks like they are going to start making proactive vision towards the Baron side. We are past the 20-minute mark now, so that might be a little bit more of a potent objective that they don't want to give up. Neither side actually.
Giving a 1-3-1 configuration here just to pressure out the lanes. Import weaving between mid lane and bot side, clearing those waves, just preparing for a fight to happen here in this mid lane, because this will inevitably be the target that UPD is going for.
And I Academy just going for the defense here, just clearing out waves whenever they enter turret range, but I wonder for how long this will last out for them. I mean, for every wave that comes in, the turret just slowly depletes. So let's go ahead and see their Yoshin and also maintaining their stance here towards this mid lane, trying to get as much of a shove in as they can. Looks like we're making his way towards the river. Gonna start establishing a little bit of control of his own, clearing out wave, or vision rather, from I Academy.
It's gotta be super careful actually, because if they don't put down this vision that they are doing right now, it's gotta be very dangerous if Hyo is able to flank them, if Sphere is able to flank them from behind the turret. They have to be cautious, and here I do think this is the wave that will fell his mid lane turret. That's a lot of wave clear come from Buggyvan with explosive shot, but the Unbreakable does ensure that that turret falls. So that's even more gold in the pockets of UPD. More gold in Yochan's pocket. He has 0 kills and 0 assists right now, but I'm sure that he has a lot of gold in his pockets from all the objectives, the 3 outer tier turrets that UPD was able to pick up.
I love the patience as well as the configuration coming in from UPD Liman. If anything, sure, like our audience might be noticing, there's not really much action happening, but then again, it's quite beautiful to witness, in my opinion, for UPD Liman, just because that through the configurations that they're doing across the lanes, if you notice, Souls was kind of pushing out the lane earlier, which forced Import to go respond once that heavy minion wave was pushing out towards that inner turret side. And in effect, knowing that Import was forced to respond to that, it was the signal for Yochan and Alto to just kind of shove out the mid lane, take down that turret, and yeah, it's just very systematic coming in from UPD. I'm still waiting for that opportunity from I Academy, though. I do like the patience, though, in exchange from I Academy to not force things.
Yeah.
As a result of UPD Liman dictating the flow of this game thus far.
I think with the way I Academy is playing, they're waiting for UPD to make a mistake. And because of their composition, because of how they've built things, they have a lot of deterrence. UPD isn't as aggressive as they would like, because if they go unprepared against I Academy, they have a much smaller margin of error, because Import will screw them up if they go for a dive too quickly, too hastily. So here, it's actually, I think, I Academy's draft and how they've been playing, how they've been patient, plays a lot into how they're not terribly behind. Because if they had picked any other composition, if any other team had played against UPD here, they would be a much bigger disadvantage.
Indeed. Looks like UPD Liman going on the offense towards this top side here. No surprise, though. I mean, like I've mentioned, this does allow for teams to get a little bit of a better control towards this Baron side. And like I mentioned, both top laners still have their teleport, patiently waiting for the right opportunity to go in at it in case team fights do ensue. But basically, then again, like I've been seeing thus far throughout this game, and as Atlas mentioned, it has been a little bit more promised, a little bit more calculated. Not pushing anything, I Academy, as well as UPD Liman, just only objective from what we can see thus far.
Not overreaching both of these teams. So that is going to be Buggyvan cleansing away with his QSS that very dangerous cocoon. Because if he had not had that item, it would have been disastrous for I Academy. Right now, though, that is going to be a 2v2 here on the bot side. Zanya is giving a lot of time for Solace to actually weave away, and now it's just going to be Import taking him down with that flash burn. Now Nona giving chase, but I don't think he can actually. But now Swar, that's one less source of damage for I Academy for the next half minute. This could be the chance for UPD to reach into the pockets of I Academy, but they have a lot of wave clearance, keeping them away from taking out the second tier top lane turret.
Yeah, this is where things really get tricky here. Even with things going on here, Buggyvan already has that Infinity Edge along with a static shift to boot.
Oh, that's scary. That's definitely scary. If Buggyvan is able to free hit, then that's quite a lot of damage coming from I Academy, but here still lots of pressure in this bot lane. The two tanks just facing it off, trying to clear each other's waves, but for now, it is just going to be a reset. Everyone going back, converging into mid lane as well before backing off, getting the value of their gold, and then seeing if they can tango once again around an objective.
Man, UPD Liman just kind of getting these shove-ins on. If you notice, I Academy just forced to go for more for defensive stats whenever waves just kind of push in, but then again, as I've kept on saying, I really like the patience coming in from I Academy at the same time. Same goes for UPD Liman. Again, it's just really a matter of time till both teams seek out that opportunity for one of the players to slip up. But then again, I mean, it's just so well calculated by both sides thus far. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those games wherein we prolong into the later parts of the game and then just one big fight that leads to a Baron take maybe, or if the death timers are heavy enough, could potentially just go for inhibitor straight off or go for a game finish. But then again, it just comes down to how these teams play out. Again, it's more of these mistakes being sought out by both teams to just capitalize on that and build up from there.
Because one mistake from these teams will lead to a much bigger snowball, a domino effect on how they play. And because of this, they're both playing quite carefully. They are reaching for their objectives, and they are defending quite well in the context of iAcademy. But the reason why they're playing this so carefully, so calculated, is that once one of these teams makes a mistake, it just opens it up for the rest of the team. See in that bot lane fight 2v2, because Swar died, the only remaining damage dealer from iAcademy was actually their AD carry.
Right.
And that actually gave a little bit of room for UPD to push towards the top side, but because of the wave clear, they had to pull back. So they have a lot of contingencies, they have a lot of ways to defend and make up for their mistakes. But if one mistake actually is left like unbandaged, it's going to be very difficult for this team to reach back into the game.
I think it ultimately comes down to, I think it's much more of a challenge for iAcademy in the sense that since they are being much more responsive to UP Diliman's proactivity across the lanes, across all the shoves that they're doing per lane, it's all a matter of them thinking quick on their feet as to who send to where, depending on what UP Diliman goes for as far as who they designate to shove out lanes. And I think from what we've seen thus far, especially after that last year coming in from iAcademy, they're doing a pretty good job at standing their ground.
Definitely. So it really comes down to an objective here. An objective will be the point of conflict for these two teams, whether it's a turret, whether it's Baron, and that's going to be a turning point for the game. Because one of these teams will win in terms of that objective. So it has to be very careful, and it seems like Baron will be the point of conflict here, the point of confidence here for both of these teams, and they are trying to control that area, establish the territory. But the rest of the map, we see these two top laners duking it out. This could be very, very bad here with killing spree onto Veer. Import tries to go in. We the Hero's entrance knocks up one person. Rappel will actually help him out and escape. Lots of damage from Winds of War and from Buggy Van. But here comes a lot of damage onto Hio. Here goes the Call of the Forge God as well. They are converged around this area. Immediately Buggavan goes down as he jumps in. Now it's just Import with no damage dealers on his side. 4 people wailing on him. That's going to be the turning point of this game, where UPD gets a 4-for-1 and Baron.
That's what I'm talking about right there. Just waiting for that big fight, that moment of a slip of coming in from iAcademy. And if anything, I only not give commendations to the actual people that were in on that fight prior, but also to an extent Nuna. I'm not sure if it was Swar trying to go in, but let's go ahead and check out the replay first as to what happened here.
He got caught in a choke.
Knock up onto Sinigang right there, and you have to take note that Morgana is quite squishy, so great focus there coming in from UTP. They want to go in. Rappel as well coming in from Veer to make sure that he doesn't take a full bulk of damage from the responsive members of iAcademy, and it was just a full collapse coming in right here. Nuna positioning his ram into the rest of iAcademy, whoever remained, and it was just a cleanup for UP Diliman right there. Great coordination that I also gotta owe it to a mishap potentially happening towards spawn side. I'm not sure if Swar was trying to cancel out Nuna's teleport, which is why he was kind of walking towards Nuna to an extent while Nuna was going in for teleport.
Nuna's gonna go down here.
Oh no.
He is quite tanky, but I think while this is happening, the rest of UPD taking out and establishing vision on his bot side. Ocean Drake in 5 seconds, and I'm sure they will have this because the rest of iAcademy was focused on top side to bring down Nona. And in that fight, well, look at those death timers though, 50 seconds. And like I said, at this point in the game, if someone slips up, it'll be a huge slip up, and here is going to be Sinigang probably going to go down here, stunned by the concussive blows, another kill onto Yochan, and this is going to be another Ocean Drake. 3 Ocean Drakes on UPD is going to be a lot of regeneration. And once they get onto an objective, onto a turret, they can dance for much, much longer, stay hydrated, and keep that energy up because they have that mana and HP regen.
iAcademy looking a little bit frazzled there, especially with that takedown. That was very uncharacteristic of what we've been seeing from them within the past few minutes, wherein they function more as a unit.
Yeah.
The fact that Sinigang was caught out solo, trying to get vision on towards Dragon, that was just quite awkward. And this is a scenario wherein with UPD Liman in the lead right now, if you're going to look at the goal difference, just kind of playing around 3,000 earlier,
difference as well.
Substantially now at leaning towards 7. We're nearing that 7,000 goal difference.
And it's not just 7,000. You also have to take into account the value of all, like the regeneration, the potion value of all that health and mana that they're regenerating right now because of the Ocean Break. The 10% bonus they get against turrets and epic monsters is also something that you have to consider in terms of the gold lead. And right now, it seems like UPD's value should be around the 10,000 lead. And here, they're really reaching for something on this bot turret now that they've cleared out the rest of the map of Academy.
This is just ultimately a point wherein UPD Liman, if they play their cards right, this could be a potential win for them, but then again,
they have to be careful here because Nona does not have teleport.
And at the same time, numbers are definitely in UPD Liman's favor. A little bit tricky here, going for a 1-1-3 configuration. Then again, it is working here because at the same time, whenever iAcademy groups up as 5, they also give up needing to go on the defense towards the other lanes. And once these waves start pushing in, coming in from both Nuna and Solus in the top lane and mid lane respectively, that's where iAcademy will need to start making the decision as to which troops they send out to which lane. And that will only allow UPD Liman a lot more access to taking down these turrets, as such as what is happening here in this block lane.
To be fair though, if they get an opportunity, the tower defense will be to the advantage of iAcademy. We have this defensive team comp with lots of counter engage, lots of disengage. If they can get a good timing and catch UPD off guard, then that could be their chance. Since in their base, there's no choke points. Because the reason they lost that fight phenomenally in the top side when near Baron is they all gathered up in a choke point, and that is just the dream for an Ornn and a Braum and a Saya. But here in their base, they have a little bit more freedom. Damage from Demolisher though, but here it might be a fight going into here. Theo and Import trying to go in here, but it's gonna be here. Lots of damage on him. Yoshan still hitting as well, and Solus coming in from the side. It is gonna be a 1 versus 1 the top lane side with Swar winning, but seems like it's gonna be a 1 for 0 actually in this bot side, and that's what I was talking about. iAcademy has the advantage if they can get a good timing of the defense.
A little bit of an overreach there coming from UPD Liman, and this might not be the end of it coming from iAcademy.
Definitely not. We're trying to fight it out against Theo. Solus surviving for so much longer because of Zhonya's, but now it's going to be the teleport from Swar. Will change up the tempo of this fight. Now Yoshan and Veer are on the run with someone on their pursuit, but it seems like they will be satisfied with getting a few kills here and there and successfully defending their objectives.
The later this game goes in, the much more potential iAcademy has to deal with the members of UPD Liman, because at this point, I mean, Lissandra deals a decent amount of damage. Not as big as other mages that we have across the board, but that's just because of the general kit that she has, wherein she makes up for it heavily because of the heavy CC lockdown and potential that she has. But overall, that kind of leaves out as far as UPD Liman missing out on much more of the damage that they could potentially be dishing out. Meanwhile, iAcademy, it's kind of like fine wine. The longer this game goes, I just couldn't even imagine just how painful Buggy Van is going to get.
Buggy Van is going to get stronger. Import is going to get tankier. Look at that health. Look at all of that defensive stats that he has. And it's just going to be much harder for UPD to reach forward. But it really depends on how they executed things. That went perfectly for iAcademy because Nona lost that top lane fight, which allowed iAcademy to just go full on assault on the bot side, defending their turret against UPD. So in the end, it was a numbers advantage as well as knowing the opportunity to strike that gave iAcademy that little win that they get. But still, UPD still ahead. No longer have the Baron buff. They still have to be very careful though. Import is a tanky dude, but he has to flash away as soon as he sees Jochan.
But then again, with that tankiness, take note, that was already 4 members of UPD Liman converging onto him, but Nona though might be in a bit of trouble himself.
Oh man, that is going to be a 3v1. He tries flashing over, but I think this is his end. It really matters now how UPD responds to this, because they are taking a long time to take down Nona. Then they are paying for the bot side. Nona falls, and just as UPD is nearing their turret. The teleport comes in from import, but I think they're just going to try and backdoor this with so much damage coming from Yochan. They can take this down, not that they have the minion wave, but they might be overreaching. That is still a 40-second death timer on Nona. They don't want to fight a 4v5. It seems like they have to take this fight now. Fear tries to go for something against the guy. Alto is very tanky indeed, but look at all of that damage come from Yochan as he free hits. Damage and stuns onto the 80 carry, but it seems like Buggyvan has to back off on that fight. Yochan still dealing so much damage. Swar goes down. Hio is the only one remaining in this fight just before Buggyvan rejoins, but I think this is still going to be quite a dangerous fight for UPD because Buggyvan is still full health. They are all very, very low. One reset is enough to bring Buggyvan above everything else in this fight, but it seems like Buggyvan being full health is enough to actually push them back.
At first glance, you might have thought that things were going well for iAcademy, but I think you have to take note that with what happened towards the top lane, it wasn't just the distraction that happened where everybody was converting onto Nuna. At the same time, you have to take into account just how many of the ammo was released by iAcademy just by wanting to take down Nuna. If you notice, Hero's entrance was used by import. There's so many different things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, when it came down to defending, sure, if anything, it could have potentially been a fight that iAcademy could have taken if they still had all their ammo intact. But then again, because of everything exhausted onto Nuna, just left less for them to have. And as Atlas mentioned, this is a composition that iAcademy has where they're pretty much stronger in terms of the defense. Because of all the ammo loss, it really degraded a lot of that potential.
It was also the survivability come from Solace. They spent all that time trying to kill Solace, that Yochan was still up and running, and once Solace gets out of the Zhonya's, gets out of the Frozen Tomb, he's healed quite a bit, and he's still dealing lots of damage, lots of CC, good enough for Yochan to take other members of iAcademy out. But of course, that is the bot lane inhibitor taken out by UPD. This could give them a lot of pressure to try and dance for this Baron, or even the Elder Drake. And the Elder Drake will give them a huge boon. They have all 4 Drakes so far in this game. 3 Ocean Drakes, 1 Mountain Drake. That will just be phenomenal in terms of regen when they siege.
Oh, this Elder Drake, though, take note. This Elder Drake is kind of building up for UPD, man, only because they have so many dragons on the go.
They have to be very careful because they don't want to get caught in the center of that dragon pit with the hero's entrance and with Buggyvan shooting them from over the wall or from the river.
Oh no, not at all. Looks like Swar, in the meantime, making his way towards topside, just kind of shoving out this lane.
This is a Baron Dragon dance happening around here. As soon as they notice Heos lingering around bot side, they make a play for the Purple Worm.
Ooh, UPD making good work of this Baron, though. Are we going to be seeing a fight? That is the question. Not quite.
Has to be very careful here. Redemption taken down. Nature's Grasp will try and reach for them, but this is just going to be UPD. They have to disengage with this.
Looks like they will be going for the disengage successfully.
Let the minions do the work. Let the minions do the work bot side. That is a big wave of super minions wailing on those Nexus turrets, and they use that as an opportunity to retreat.
iAcademy a little bit in too late for that party that happened towards Baron side, effectively giving it to UPD Liman, and with this Baron back on their side, it just kind of diminishes the defense.
The Elder Drake here, that is quite potent. They can do this very quickly. It seems like iAcademy will be focusing all their attention to try and stop that. Hio leading the charge for this one, but Eldrake already below half health. Can Hio make it? He has the flash. Not enough, not fast enough, and they take it without contest.
This is Christmas for UPD Liman right now. We have the Baron, we have the Elder Drake, combined with all 4 dragons going to them throughout this entire game. If anything, UPD Liman is at their prime right now, and they do have the potential to go on the offense and go head-to-head with iAcademy, but I think it ultimately goes down to how they play out these team fights. But let's go ahead and see how that transpires. UPD Liman going now.
This is bot lane, super minion waves, top lane Nona, mid lane, the rest of the members of UPD, they are on a demolition spree on these turrets. iAcademy will have to respond one way or another because slowly UPD will nail in the corners of the coffins of iAcademy if they don't stop this assault.
Ooh. Looks like UPD Liman gonna make a rotation towards the top side, though, just taking things
Just take
down.
the inhibitors out. Hio trying to go for Nature's Grasp, trying to just defend the remaining remnants of his turret, but seems like it's not enough. That is going to be the Idol of Duran burnt by import, just a few seconds off on that cooldown, but that's huge AoE CC taken away. Third inhibitor destroyed by UPD, and that's also going to be Hio locked down. That's Sinigang as well. Bugvan is super low. That is Solace surviving with the sliver of health with his Zonias as Yochan cleans up the rest of I Academy. And this is game 1 of I Academy Game Changers versus UPD Diliman Oblation Esports, being taken away by the rookie team of Oblation Esports.
Indeed, congratulations, UPD Diliman Oblation Esports taking game 1 against the I Academy Game Changers. Let's see what happens later on, but for now, good job UPD. Wow, what a game. I mean, this is basically, everything was just so well calculated. I mean, it's somewhat refreshing, especially since for those that have been tuning in to the LCL, it's the word that me and Tyson tried. Yeah, change of pace. And I wouldn't even, I mean, if most of the games that we've been casting these past few days have been a fiesta, it's almost a breath of fresh air.
The word.
Yeah.
Right. It's really how these two teams can shift gears. Very calculated in how they play in the early game. But as the game goes on and as circumstances change, they can change gears into an aggressive stance come from UPD or to a counter-attacking stance from I Academy. So really, even though UPD won this pretty clearly in the back end of the game, I Academy put up a huge fight lasting that long against that composition.
Definitely. And at the end of the day, even with UPD Diliman Oblation Esports winning, I think it's not really much of a sigh of relief for them just yet, because I think through that game, it just goes to show just how powerful a team I Academy Game Changers is as well. And I know that they're pretty hungry for a chance at winning that second game to go even 1-1. But I don't know, man. We'll just have to see later on. But still very well played by UPD Diliman. Very methodical. Very, I'd almost deem that as clean, to be honest. So very well.
We will be transitioning into game 2 after this. This is the opportunity for the coaches to do their thing, to really talk to their team and see how they are able to adapt to these changing circumstances into the second game. So of course, we'll be having that after a short break. We were your shoutcasters for this first game. I'm Atlas. With me was Arctic, and we'll be seeing you after a break. Now, this could be very bad here with killing spree onto Veer. Import tries to go in. We the hero's entrance knocks up one person. Rappel will actually help him out and escape. Lots of damage from Winds of War and from Buggy Van. But here comes a lot of damage onto Theo. There goes the Call of the Forge God as well. They are converged around this area. Immediately Buggavan goes down as he jumps in. Now it's just Import with no damage dealers on his side. 4 people wailing on him. That's going to be the turning point of this. It seems like they have to take this fight now. Veer tries to go for something against the guy. Alto is very tanky indeed, but look at all of that damage come from Yoshan as he 3 hits. Damage and stuns onto the 80 carry, but it seems like Buggavan has to back off from that fight. Yoshan still dealing so much damage. Swar goes down. Hio is the only one remaining in this fight just before Buggavan rejoins. But I think this is still going to be quite a dangerous fight for UPD because Buggavan is still full health. They are all very low. 1 away. Third inhibitor destroyed by UPD. And that's also going to be Hio locked down. That's Sinigang as well. Buggavan is super low. That is Solace surviving with the sliver of health with his Zonias as Yochan cleans up the rest of I Academy. And this is game 1 of I Academy Game Changers versus UPD Diliman Oblation Esports, being taken away by the rookie team of Oblation Esports.
Indeed, congratulations, UPD Diliman Oblation Esports taking game 1 against the I Academy Game Changers. Let's see what happens later on, but for now, good job UPD.
Not enough Garena shells to buy the latest League of Legends skin? On sale now? Get shells anytime, anywhere with your Globe or Touch mobile number. Go to gamer.com.ph and sign up with your mobile number and enter the verification code you will receive via SMS. Log in and choose the game and pin you want. Check out to purchase the pin with your load or through your postpaid account and receive the pin on your phone instantly. Never miss a sale on your favorite League of Legends skins and champions with Gamer.